Welcome to June Book Buzz, where we're talking about the exciting new titles coming out next month. I am joined by Patrick and Ash, and we're going to dive right in with our best-selling fiction titles. The first one is Whistler by Ann Patchett. This luminous and lyrical new novel centers around two adults using the power of connection to defy time as it reflects on their life and their choices. Next we have Daughters of the Sun and Moon by Lisa C. Drawn from the vibrancy and turmoil of post-Civil War LA, it follows the story of three Chinese women who managed to survive and eventually thrive despite the odds against them. Next we have Choke Point by Brad Thor. This is 25 in the Scott Harveth series. With all eyes on Taiwan, China makes a stunning move against Thailand with help. It's up to Scott to discover who is spilling American secrets and stop China's elite espionage unit in this well-plotted spy thriller. Next we have Villa Coco by Andrew Sean Greer. Set in the Tuscan Hills, a friendship between a young archivist and local widow blooms as the past is brought into the light in the story about life and connection. A Pair of Aces by Marie Benedict is a gripping novel about two trailblazing women on the opposite sides of the law who work together to bring down a notorious gangster. Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep by Paul Tremblay is described as a genre-bending cyberpunk horror. A comatose man has a proprietary AI implanted into his brain and is being controlled with a cell phone in this heady, thought-provoking sci-fi novel. The Missed Connection by Tia Williams is also coming out. It's described as an intensely romantic, sensual tale about a woman searching for her mysterious and handsome seatmate on a European flight and the unexpected places her hunt for love leads. And then finally we have Road Trip by Mary Kay Andrews. In this, two sisters reunite for an unexpected journey into their family's past as they search for answers about a mysterious painting. With that, jump into the nonfiction titles.
So, No Dumb Questions is a book by Jason and Travis Kelce, famous Super Bowl champion brothers. In this one, they tackle some of life's dumbest questions, covering topics like sports, relationships, parenting, guerrilla fights, and more. Tonight, The Music Seems So Loud is a story of the life and music of pop superstar George Michael. It credits Michael for breaking extraordinary boundaries and helping define an era in the 80s and 90s. A Resistance History of the United States is a book that, as you might expect, looks at resistance movements in American history. A couple that he talks about are the Salem witch trials and the Underground Railroad. And he's looking at these to give us a new understanding of how resistance shaped our past and how its principles can change our future. Something We Said by Elizabeth Stordor Pryor, who is the daughter of the famous comedian Richard Pryor. Now she's a history professor, and in this book she talks about her upbringing and also specifically examines the history of the use of the N-word, which is something that her father made a kind of a trademark in his comedy routines in the 1970s. The Plunge by Chris Ballard is a book that looks at the fascinating world of cold water plunging and swimming, what it reveals about the human body, mind, and need for connection. Little Blue Dot by Catherine Dunn is the history of a military technology turned daily necessity that impacts all of our lives, that being GPS. It It's a gripping narrative of spies, scientists, and the secret history of how we came to map the world. The Perfect Moment by Isaac Butler discusses the forgotten origins of America's culture wars, something the author traces back to the battle between art and censorship in the late 20th century. And lastly, A Voice Like Mine by Deb Haaland is a memoir by one of the first she was one of the first two Native American women to be elected to Congress. She was the first Native American to serve in the presidential cabinet, and she is currently the front runner for the New Mexico governor's race.
Whispered Creek by Allison Brennan. After the sudden death of her husband, Ellen McKenna is struggling to keep her Texas farm afloat, while neighboring farmers in Cook County sell out to a local businessman. Ellen refuses to give up her family's future, but after severe storms flood the region, the McKennas are pulled into a series of dangerous events. An injured dog leads Ellen's oldest son to a victim of a brutal attack, and her youngest children stumble into a threat they never expected. As the storm intensifies and cuts them off from help, Ellen must fight to protect both her family and the farm from forces threatening to destroy everything she's worked for. Allison Brennan blends tense suspense, family drama, and the raw power of nature in this gripping standalone thriller. My read alikes for this are going to be The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. In 1974, former Vietnam POW Ernst Albright moves his wife Cora and 13-year-old daughter Lenny to remote Alaska in search of a fresh start and a life off the grid. At first, the rugged wilderness and close-knit community offer hope for a better future, but as the harsh winter sets in, Ernst, this guy, this veteran, his mental state worsens, and the dangers inside their cabin become more threatening than the wild outside. And isolation and fear grow. Lenny and her mother must learn to survive on their own in a land as beautiful as it is unforgiving. And in William Kent Kruger's Ordinary Grace, set in a small town, Minnesota, during the summer of 1961, 13-year-old Frank Drum season of tragedy changes his family forever. What begins as an ordinary summer soon becomes marked by death, secrets, betrayal, and heartbreak, forcing Frank to confront the harsh realities of adulthood far too soon. Told from Frank's perspective 40 years later, the novel is a moving coming-of-age story about love, lost faith, family, and the difficult lessons that shape all life.
The Animal Room by Lauren Acampora is a set of linked stories set in suburban Connecticut that spotlight human-animal relations. So this is the author's second short story collection. Her first was called The Wonder Garden, that came out way back in 2015. Incisive and moving, these stories chart the interconnected lives of neighbors, relatives, coworkers, enemies, lovers, and animals around them, turning an unflinching eye to the natural world to shed light on human nature. Through its riveting ensemble, The Animal Room paints a kaleidoscopic portrait of contemporary American life that is strikingly unique. So this story collection is being called Strikingly Unique, like I just said, and Transcendent, with a mix of eclectic characters. And themes, as you probably already gathered, include interconnectedness and human nature. Vampires in the Lemon Grove by Karen Russell would be one read-alike. It's a macabre, hilarious, and tender short story collection that also explores the links between humans and animals.
Macabre and tender.
I know, it's strange, isn't it? Maybe those are two different stories, you know. Florida by Lauren Groff is a short story collection that brings the reader into a physical world that is in one
discovers is that the murdered professor has more enemies than friends in this not so dark but still very twisty academic mystery. The first read-alike I have is more of a dark academia murder mystery. It is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. After Zoe's friend is murdered at Cambridge University, Mariana is convinced that the charismatic Greek professor is involved, especially as she discovers a secret society of young women who seem to be obsessed with them. This is a dark, twisted academic mystery with suspicious undercurrents flowing throughout. The other read-alike I have focuses more on literarily inclined murders, and that is The Stranger Diaries by Ellie Griffith. Claire, a high school English teacher, is horrified to see her life collide with the very gothic literature she teaches as a body of a friend and colleague is discovered. As the investigation proceeds, Claire doesn't know who to trust as the killer begins to turn life into some of her favorite gothic writings. It is a twisted academic murder mystery. It's described as a perfect read-alike for blunt instruments. Next, kind of changing pace here a bit, we have The Daffodil Days by Helen Bain. This is a historical fiction. This poignant and detailed book depicts a pivotal year in the marriage of the 20th century literature's most famous couple, Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes. The focus is predominantly on Sylvia. It's described as a kaleidoscopic portrait of an enigmatic pair, refracted through the rich inner lives of the rural community around them in England. Just really pleased that I got all of those words together correctly in the right order and everything. Yay. So my first read-alike is American Isis. This is actually a non-fiction title. It is a biography of Sylvia Plath on there. It is described as a well-researched biography that follows her life from her contentious relationship with her mother to her rise as being described as and you see I celebrated too soon, and her rise as the Marilyn Monroe of modern literature. This was one of the first biographies published about her once the Ted Hughes archive was opened to researchers. The other read-alike I have is one of Sylvia Plath's most celebrated works. It's called The Bell Jar, because it is described as one of the most profound character portraits of mental illness. This novel tells the story of a brilliant young artist who is losing her mind. This book is renowned for grappling with themes of feminism, societal pressure, and ambition.
9 Lives by Catherine Stedman. After a messy divorce, Frankie moves to London with her cat, Blue, hoping for a fresh start. But when Blue returns from one of his nightly adventures with the words, "Help me," scratched into his collar, Frankie becomes convinced someone nearby is in danger. Dismissed by the police, she takes matters into her own hands, attaching a camera to Blue's collar and following his secret nighttime rounds through the neighborhood. As Blue unknowingly leads her into the lives of her neighbors, Frankie uncovers disturbing secrets and realizes she may be far closer to danger than she imagined. Fast-paced and suspenseful, 9 Lives is an entertaining thriller filled with twists and unsuspected turns. Read-alikes are going to be Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Jess needs a fresh start. She's broken alone and she's just left her job under less than ideal circumstances. Her half-brother Ben didn't sound thrilled when she asked if she could crash with him for a bit, but he didn't say no. And surely everything will look better for Paris. Only when she shows up to find a very nice apartment. Could Ben really have afforded this? He's not there. The longer Ben stays missing, the more Jess starts to dig into her brother's situation, and the more questions she has. Ben's neighbors are an eclectic bunch and not particularly friendly. Jess may have come to Paris to escape her past, but it's starting to look like it's Ben's future that's in question. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. And in The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, boards a luxury cruise aboard the Aurora, expecting a glamorous week at sea, but after witnessing what appears to be a woman thrown overboard in the middle of the night, Lo is horrified to discover that every passenger is still accounted for and no one believes her. As the isolated ship continues through the North Sea, Lo becomes convinced that something terrible is hidden on board.
For the great outdoors, this one is an engaging, slow burn rom-com about a high-maintenance woman, think Elle Woods from Legally Blonde, who embarks on a wilderness trek to prove to her ex how low maintenance she can be, only to find herself with no makeup and an extremely attractive trek leader. Olsen keeps the pages turning. The emotional journeys of the leads are similarly well rendered as they both gain confidence, learn to let each other in, and build lasting connection. Armchair travelers will be especially delighted. So if you like romances on the sweet, funny, heartwarming side, this would be a good one for you to pick up. A couple similar reads. Wild About You by Caitlin Hill is about an indoorsy theater girl who teams up with a nature lover in an amazing race-style competition set in the Appalachian wilderness. And then Out of the Woods by Hannah Bottom Young is a heartwarming rom-com about a married couple who go on a wilderness expedition in order to reconnect with one another. The Dog Walkers Detective Agency by Michael Hogan. So this is a charming debut mystery novel, perfect for fans of cozy mysteries and or dog lovers. Set in a charming seaside town in England, the mystery to be solved in this one is the murder of a local pub landlord whose body is found by dog walker Charlie Boardman and his Staffordshire Bull Terrier Ruby. Charlie and his fellow dog walkers try to sniff out clues to find out what happened. It's a big-hearted story with colorful characters that is also ingeniously plotted and features, allegedly, a big twist ending. If you like dog-related mysteries, you definitely will want to check out David Rosenfeld if you have not. He's got a long-running mystery series about a defense attorney named Andy Carpenter who solves mysteries with the help of his canine companions. This is just one. I think this one's actually more of a prequel of the series, but there's maybe 20, 30 books in the series. And the other read-alike you see up there is How to Talk to Your Dog About Murder by Emily Soderbergh. I believe this one was also a debut from just a few months ago, but this one's about a pet behaviorist who's making ends meet as a dog walker, and she ends up looking into the murder of a wealthy local woman. Drayton and Mackenzie by Alexander Starrett. So Alexander Starrett is a Scottish author, and this was actually first published in the UK last year. It's gotten a lot of praise. It's been on a lot of best book of the year lists, including being the first novel to be on the Financial Times and Schroeder's Business Book of the Year list in 15 years. According to the Financial Times, it is simultaneously a breathtaking conspectus of the 21st century, an exciting rags to riches adventure, and a deeply moving story of male friendship. So the story takes place during the first 2 decades of the 21st century. It's about 2 friends who are former Oxford classmates. One brilliant and disciplined, the other more of an impulsive dreamer type. And they both end up taking jobs at the same firm just before the financial crisis begins to unfold. One reviewer says, it's a throwback to the classic Bildungsroman, but a 500-page epic also unfolds as a nuanced satire on the contemporary financial world. So for read-alikes, Michael Chabon, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. This one is also a coming-of-age story with a male friendship focus, also described as humorous and epic. Cavalier and Claire is over 600 pages. And this one, A Little Life, has those same similarities. Buildings roman, friendship, epic, long. That one's about 4 classmates that moved to New York to kind of make their way in life together. This one is The Neighbors Are Watching by Aggie Bloom Thompson. It's a meticulously plotted, fast-paced thriller set in a wealthy Washington, D.C. suburb that explores obsession, betrayal, and the price of perfection. 1 year after a nanny is killed during a robbery gone wrong, the murder remains unsolved. Karen, a middle-aged empty nester, living in the same neighborhood where the crime took place, teams up with a new neighbor who is trying to find out who killed his best friend. So as they investigate, they start to uncover a dark side to their otherwise picture-perfect neighborhood. Thompson has been called the master of suburban scandal, and this book has been called her best work yet. A couple read-alikes would be Don't Look for Me by Wendy Walker. This is a domestic thriller about a woman who disappears one night on her drive home. Did she, or as her note indicates, intentionally leave her life behind, or is there something more nefarious going on? And then The Senator's Wife by Liv Constantine is another thriller, also set in D.C. This one's about a senator's wife who begins to believe that either her husband or the woman hired to provide her post-surgical support is out to destroy her sanity.
Abby Offsides by Anna McKaylee is described as a witty, heartfelt debut about a woman's impulsive journey to England after a broken engagement leads her to a new version of herself and new love. Abby will have to be careful that she's not offsides when she falls for Mersey Football Club's newest midfielder, a banter-filled, smoldering, slow-burn romance about reclaiming one's sense of self in a relationship. My 2 read-alikes are both sports themes read-alikes and have similar punny natures about them. The first one is Pickleballers, because of its similar focus on both sports and of a woman bouncing back after a bad relationship. All puns are intended, I am so sorry. It is a pun-filled adventure where a pickleball newbie looking to recover from life's swings and misses crosses paddles with love in this romantic comedy. The other is The Wild Card. This one is both a sports-themed romance as well as being focused on, we'll say, workplace romances as well. It is a spicy enemies to lovers hockey romance that centers on Jordan Hathaway, a new staff member of the Vancouver Storm team, and the hunky head coach, Tate Ward, after the two are forced to join together to stop Jordan's dad from selling the team. So both super fun, lighthearted, perfect beach reads.
Heather by Caitlin Mullen is a gorgeously written and atmospheric mystery. It is also a deeply insightful meditation on the lives of girls and women. The story revolves around the disappearance of twin sisters in 1990 small town New Jersey, and the newly instated police chief, Callie Hauser, who reopens the case years later after unexpectedly coming upon new details. A slow burn mystery held together by an admirable cast of strong, flawed women. Mullen offers hope that by standing alongside one another, women not only survive but preserve the stories of those they have lost. So this book sounds like a good read for those who like their page turners to be a little more thought-provoking, a little more lyrical in the prose. Pay Dirt Road by Samantha Jane Allen is a book about a young female private investigator searching for a missing waitress in Texas. It's kind of a coming-of-age mystery novel. And Dirt Creek is another
C.B. Everett's The Final Chapter is a book within a book about a book from the author of Blackly Funny, The Other People, a gripping book within a book thriller exploring the disappearance of a famous author through the pages of his coded espionage novel. 10 years ago, a best-selling, critically acclaimed literary author disappears without a trace and without a final novel. In recent days, that missing manuscript has surfaced, but strangely enough, it's not another genius work of literary fiction, but an espionage novel full of all too stereotypical spycraft and James Bond-like twists. His former publisher has asked the author's best friend and fellow author named C.B. Everett to annotate the novel with details from real life to give the strange novel context within his larger oeuvre. I hate French. But as C.B. reads, he finds the espionage thriller is filled with references to events and people who feel a little too familiar, and soon he's wondering if the novel might be in fact a key to his missing friend's disappearance. There's text and subtext aplenty, and C.B. is determined to learn once and for all what happened to his friend through solving the mystery woven into the pages. But the final chapter may hold secrets darker and more threatening than anyone anticipated. Critics say that fans of Anthony Horowitz and Janice Hallett would vibe with this novel, so I ran into those suggestions for Rita Likes. Anthony Horowitz, A Deadly Episode. The actors have been cast, the screen written, and filming has already started in Hastings, but when the real detectives the movie is portraying, Hawthorne and Anthony, visit the set, they find a tumultuous studio. The director's pretentious, the screenwriter's an eco-warrior, and the two stars hate each other, and the producer has run out of money. Things are about to get much, much worse. In the middle of shooting, the actor playing Hawthorne is stabbed, which leaves the real Hawthorne with no choice. He has to step in and investigate his own murder. Because the killer may not have got the right man, was it Hawthorne himself who was meant to be the target? A Deadly Episode is a wild ride through a world that the author knows only too well, and the most personal case Hawthorne has had to deal with so far. This is like the 6th of the series. And a mysterious case of Apperton Angels, true crime author Amanda Bailey sets out to investigate the infamous Apperton Angels cult, where a teenage girl was allegedly manipulated into believing her baby was the Antichrist before the group's apparent mass suicide and the child's disappearance. With the child now an adult, Amanda hopes to uncover the truth and revive her career, but she's not alone in the search. Rival journalist Olivia Menzies is also tracking the case, forcing the two into an uneasy partnership. As they dig deeper, they discover the story is far more complex and disturbing than they expected, and they may be in danger of becoming part of it. The Sublimation by Isabel J. Kim. The border cuts you in two. When you immigrate, you leave a copy of yourself behind. An instance. One person enters their new country, the other stays trapped at home. Some instances keep in touch, call each other daily, keep their lives and minds in sync in hopes of reintegrating and resuming a life as one person. Others, like Soyoung, Rose Kang, leave home at 10 years old and never speak to their other selves again. Rose, in America, never imagined going back to Korea until her grandfather died and her Korean instance called her home for the funeral. She doesn't know that Soyoung plans to seal her body and her life. How far would you go to live the choice you didn't make? Fans of Severance will enjoy this novel. I went with kind of cloning. Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. The real Mickey 7, not that crap movie that came out last year. Avoiding deadly loan sharks, Mickey volunteers as an expendable for a lifelong planet colonizing effort in a new solar system. His job as an expendable is to die. Don't worry, he's saved on a hard drive and wakes up in a new version of his body hours later. But when he miraculously survives an encounter with the natives of his new home, he finds himself face to face with himself. A taboo that could get himself permanently deleted. Mickey needs to be cunning to save the life he finally wants to keep. And in Rob Hart's The Warehouse, Cloud isn't just a place to work, it's a place to live, and when you're here, you'll never want to leave. Paxton never thought he'd be working for Cloud, the giant tech company that's eaten much of the American economy, much less that he'd be moving into one of the company's sprawling life work facilities. But compared to what's left outside, Cloud's bland chain store life of gleaming entertainment halls, open plan offices, and vast warehouses, well, it doesn't seem so bad. It's more than anyone else is offering. Xenia never thought she'd be infiltrating Cloud, but now she's undercover inside the walls, risking it all to ferret out the company's darkest secrets. And Paxton, with his ordinary little hopes and fears, he might make the perfect pawn if she can bear to sacrifice him. As the truth about Cloud unfolds, Xenia must scramble everything on the desperate scheme, one that risks both their lives, even as it forces Paxton to question everything about the world he's too carefully assembled here.
Okay, What Came West is a beautiful and bloody western set in the Sierra Nevada mountains during the 1840s. So unmoored Silas Hall heads west and becomes one of the first white settlers to cross into the Sierra Nevada just before the start of the gold rush. And when thousands flood the region looking for gold, Silas alters the course of his life by committing a desperate murder. So the book is told in two voices. You have the third person account of Silas on the run, and you also have a confessional letter from Silas to the son that he left behind. Kirkus says, written under the influence of Cormac McCarthy and perhaps James Joyce, it's a powerful novel, rich in language and dark intensity. One fellow author calls it a perfect literary western. So, for one of the read-alikes, I do have the Cormac McCarthy novel, Suttree. It has a similar rawness and intensity to What Came West. This one's about a man who forsakes a life of privilege to live in a dilapidated houseboat on the Tennessee River. And Tom's Crossing, which came out end of last year, beginning of this year, this one's an epic literary western about two friends who set out to rescue a pair of horses who are set for slaughter and wind up on an adventure through the Utah mountains.
Next up, we have The Typing Lady by Ruth Ozeki. It is described as a spellbinding story collection about the lives we almost live, from people we can't quite forget and the stories that shape us along the way, long after the pages have turned. Spanning eras, geographies, this electrifying meditation on the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we abandon, and the stories we become is sure to delight all according to the reviews. The first read-alike I have for it is No Two Persons by Erica Bromeister. Because of its similar look about the stories that define and shape us, this lyrically written book explores how one story impacts 9 readers in beautiful and unexpected ways. It is described as an emotionally powerful story of connection. Next, I have another short story collection called Unaccustomed Earth. This one I picked because of its emotional weight and focus on connections between individuals. It is a collection of 8 short stories that explores themes of love, loss, connection, and family, featuring large casts of characters and life experiences. It is lyrically written and immersive. The writing style of this one very much reminded me of Ruth's writing style. Just absolutely stunning. Enjoyed both of them very, very much. We have Marion by Leah Rowan. This is a reimagining of Hitchcock's most famous film, Psycho, which shocked audiences by killing off his primary protagonist. But what if the leading lady had fought back? This new book offers an alternative reality of the most famous dead blonde to grace the silver screen, only this time the knife is in her hands and she is no victim. So with that in mind, the 2 read-alikes I picked, the first one was Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix.
Joseph Eckhart's The Traveler follows Scott Treader, a man who begins uncontrollably leaping forward through time in ever-growing intervals. As years vanish into moments, his wife struggles to hold their family together while his brilliant son, Lyle, dedicates his life to quantum physics in hopes of bringing his father back. It's a heartfelt sci-fi story about time, loss, and the enduring bond between father and son. Elaine Mastai's All Are Wrong Todays follows Tom Barron, a man from a futuristic utopia in 2016 who accidentally alters history and ends up trapped in our imperfect reality. As he discovers unexpected happiness and connections in the new world, Tom must decide whether to restore his original timeline or embrace the messy life he's found here. And in Octavia Butler's Kindred, Dana, a modern black woman, is celebrating her 26th birthday with her new husband when she is snatched abruptly from her home in California and transported to an antebellum South. Rufus, the white son of a plantation owner, is drowning and Dana has been summoned to save him. Dana is drawn back repeatedly through time to slave quarters, and each time the stay grows longer, more arduous and more dangerous until it is uncertain whether or not Dana's life will end long before it has a chance to begin.
The Shampoo Effect by Jenny Jackson is a general fiction novel. An ambitious young woman, Caroline, becomes friends with a tight-knit group of eccentric friends in a picturesque coastal village. One of the group becomes pregnant with the guy Caroline has a crush on. And in a fit of emotional duress, she reveals long-held secrets that turns the group and the community on its ear. It is described as a dazzling, frothy novel of love, money, sex, and friendship. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with the descriptions of this one. The first read-alike I have is Bad Summer People. Because of its similar premise with an idyllic summer retreat that is torn asunder by exposing secrets. In this, Jen and Lauren are best frenemies. They have summered together with their husbands on Fire Island every year since forever. Everything seems as it always has been. Even their single friend Rachel has tagged along this time though. Until everything is fine until a body is discovered. Described as stylish, subversive, and darkly comedic. Described as a stylish, subversive, darkly comedic story about what lurks just beneath the calm surface. Next is Reckless Girls. I picked this as a read-alike because also a similar setting of a seemingly summer paradise, and because of the secrets that come to light. In this, Lux and Nico are hired to sail two women to a remote island in the Pacific. While there, they meet another couple, and as the group of six begins to bond, secrets slowly start bubbling to the surface. When one person goes missing and another is turned dead, Lux begins to wonder if any of them will get off this island alive in his twisty vacation thriller.
Melissa Albert's The Children follows Guinevere Sharp, the daughter of a beloved fantasy author whose best-selling books were inspired by Guinevere and her brother's isolated childhood in rural Vermont. Though the world views their upbringing as magical and enchanting, the reality was far darker, marked by neglect, poverty, and the growing pressures of fame. Years after a mysterious fire killed their mother and left the siblings as the only survivors, Guinevere is forced to revisit the past when her estranged brother unveils an unsettling new art exhibit. As buried memories resurface, she begins unveiling the truth about the fire, her mother's legacy, and the blurred line between myth, memory, and reality. Read-alikes are going to be Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle, taking readers deep into a labyrinth of dark neurosis. We Have Always Lived in the Castle is a deliciously unsettling novel about a perverse, isolated, and possibly murderous family and the struggles that ensue when cousins arrive at the estate. And Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. Fresh from a brief stay at a psych hospital, reporter Camille Preaker faces a troubling assignment. She must return to her tiny hometown to uncover the unsolved murder of a preteen girl and the disappearance of another. For years, Camille has hardly spoken to her neurotic, hypochondriac mother and to the half-sister she barely knows. A beautiful 13-year-old with an eerie grip on the town, now installed in her old bedroom in her family's Victorian mansion, Camille finds herself identifying with the young victim a bit too strongly. Dogged by her own demons, she must unravel the psychological puzzle of her own past if she wants to get the story and survive this homecoming.
The Rainy Day Bookshop by Ray Ann Thing. This is an emotionally rich novel that follows Rosie, the owner of the Rainy Day Bookshop, as she navigates a fraught relationship with her daughter while also caring for her own mother. The last thing she expects is to fall in love with an eccentric, reclusive writer, especially one as annoying as Andrew Morgan. Despite that, I'm going to say she can't help herself when the two start to connect in unexpected ways. It is described as a layered book with well-drawn characters that explores healing through books and connection. I had a little bit of a difficult time picking read-alikes for this book because a lot of the reviews talked about its emotional weight and the family relationships and things in them, and it was a hard time as far as picking good ones that I felt really reflected that. The first thing was This Book Made Me Think of You by Libby Page. This one seemed to be also an emotionally rich story that shares the theme of healing through books. And Anne likes it. Tilly is grieving the loss of her husband, and to help her, he left her a gift of 12 books at the local bookshop to help her get through that first year without him. Heartwarming and bittersweet, this reading-inspired novel explores love, loss, and the healing power of stories. The other read-alike that I found was The Wild Lavender Bookshop, because it also deals with heavy family relationships and then also romance as well. In this, Cora and Catherine want to help their dad, the owner of the local bookshop, find love again, but he has other plans in mind. Meanwhile, Andy Delane has arrived in town to hear the last wishes of the father she never knew, and the two of them seem to spark a relationship. This is a tender, uplifting novel set in a small-town bookshop that focuses heavily on families, connection, romance, and story.
Strangers Behind Closed Doors is a new twisty thriller with a noir tone that blends domestic suspense with police procedural. After hard-working Giovanni Mason, the first black head concierge at a glamorous Chicago hotel, gets into a heated argument with a former friend in the hotel restaurant, that friend subsequently goes missing, and Giovanni quickly becomes a suspect. The evidence begins to pile up against Giovanni, but she does have one ally in a detective who sees disturbing parallels between this case and a series of disappearances of black women. This book is a lacerating look at class and race and the bonds we need to survive the horrors of both. First read-alike, No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, is about a woman and her neighbor who begin to uncover a disturbing conspiracy when they look into do some historical research about their Brooklyn neighborhood that is currently being gentrified. So you have a similar race theme in that one as well. And Stay Awake by Megan Golden has the similar wakes up in the back of a taxi with no memory of how she got there, and she begins to discover evidence that links her to a crime she does not remember committing.
Jessica Goldstein's Retro follows Ash, it's me, an unemployed aspiring actress who takes a job with Retro, a company that offers wealthy clients luxurious vacations through time. As a time travel agent, Ash escorts tourists to destinations like the Old West, Prohibition-era speakeasies, and the Gold Rush, quickly becoming swept up in the excitement and glamour of her surreal new career between a budding love triangle and the thrill of living inside history. Ash finally feels like her life is going somewhere, until strange lapses in her memory and cracks in her personal relationships begin to emerge. As the line between past and present starts to blur, Ash is forced to confront the hidden costs of escaping reality through time travel. I went with an oldie. Ray Bradbury's A Sound of Thunder, Time Safari Incorporated, for a sizable fee, will take a client back in time, way back, so that they can hunt a T-Rex, but overly conscious of any possible effect on the future time, the butterfly effect. Great measures are taken to ensure that as little impact on time is allowed. Time Safari employees mark possible huntee animals as those who would have died anyway, and a gravity-defying path is formed to protect every blade of ancient grass. Blake Crouch's Recursion follows New York City detective Barry Sutton as he investigates a strange phenomenon called false memory syndrome, where people suddenly remember entire lives they never had. At the same time, neuroscientist Helen Smith is developing technology to preserve human memory, only to uncover something far more dangerous. As their paths converge, they discover a force capable of rewriting history itself, forcing them to fight to save a world that is rapidly unraveling.
Down with the Shipments by Meg Mitchell-Moore is a warm, funny, quick-witted beach read about three sisters at a family beach house in New England. So the sisters are attending their first family reunion since the death of their mother, when their father breaks the news that he's going to sell the house. May, the youngest, is distraught at the news. Natalie, the middle sister, is also anxious about the sale of the house, as her public image as a trad wife is imploding. And then Jordan, the oldest, a high-powered crisis communications expert, is ready to be rid of the house so she can deal with her own professional problems. Moore has a way of bringing you into the heart of her characters and layering her unputdownable story with depth and humor, honesty and insight. Get ready to laugh, cry, and fall in love with the Shipman sisters as they grapple with the death of their mother, learn each other's secrets, and say goodbye to the beloved family beach house. First read-alike I have is Sandwich by Catherine Newman. This one is set around a Cape Cod family getaway. The main character is a middle-aged woman who faces her family's history and future and accepts that she can no longer hide her secrets from the people she loves. It's called Moving and Hilarious. And then Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson, another family drama beach read about, this was about three women in an old Brooklyn clan. It's said to be filled with humor, love. It's both endearing and exasperating, and specifically explores the theme of generational wealth.
In Catherine Arden's The Unicorn Hunters, Orphan Duchess Anne of Brittany faces the loss of her country after being forced to marry the King of France. Determined to save her country, she secretly arranges a rival marriage and journeys into a legendary forest beyond the reach of magical spies. What begins as a disguised hunting expedition soon becomes... What begins as a disguised hunting expedition soon becomes something far more dangerous when a unicorn appears and a mysterious stranger emerges from the woods. Drawn into a world of myth and enchantment, Anne must discover whether the magic she finds will save her kingdom or destroy her. My reader likes are going to be Joe Abercrombie. He's half a king, betrayed by his family and left for dead. Prince Yarvi, reluctant heir to a divided kingdom, has vowed to reclaim a throne he never wanted. But first he must survive cruelty, chains, and the bitter waters of the Shattered Sea itself, all with only one good hand. Born a weakling in the eyes of a hard, cold world, he cannot grip a shield or swing an axe, so he has sharpened his mind to a deadly edge. Gathering a strange fellowship of outcasts, he finds that they can help him more than any noble. Even so, Yarvi's path may end as it began, in twists, traps, and tragedy. And in Uprooted by Naomi Novik, Agni lives in a quiet valley threatened by a dark, corrupted forest known as the Wood. Her people depend on a powerful wizard called the Dragon for protection, but every 10 years he demands a young woman to serve him. Everyone expects the dragon to choose Agni's beautiful best friend, Cassie, but instead he chooses Agni. Drawn into a world of dangerous magic and ancient evil, she discovers she may hold the power to confront the Wood itself.
Ab is The American School of Spies by Stephanie Talty. In this, she talks about Rodney Young, who was an Ivy League trained archaeologist in 1942 when he was approached by Wild Bill Donovan about fighting Nazis and protecting some of the world's most precious relics. This is a fast-paced narrative nonfiction that tells the story of unlikely spies recruited to gather information and protect Greek artifacts and treasures from the Third Reich. So naturally, my first read-alike is Monuments Men. This is also a fast-paced narrative nonfiction that tells the story of the scholars and experts dubbed the Monuments Men, who risked their lives to save and recover art and antiquities from the Nazis. It focuses predominantly on the period between D-Day and VE Day. It is a fascinating account following 6 of these individuals and their mission to save art looted by the Nazis. And then the next read-alike I have is Book and Dagger by Elsa Graham. This is also a fast-paced narrative nonfiction that has been rigorously researched and tells the gripping stories of librarians, archivists, professors, and scholars who were recruited by the OSS as spies and laid the foundations of modern spycraft. Meticulously researched, entertaining, and a large cast of characters.
Clean Up on Aisle 5 by Ann Larson. Grocery stores may seem ordinary, but they reflect the complexities of society. During the pandemic, journalist and activist Ann Larson took a job as a cashier in a Utah supermarket while unemployed. Despite years spent writing about low-wage labor, she was unprepared for the harsh realities, tensions, and moments of solidarity she encountered behind the register. In Clean Up on Aisle 5, Larson explores how supermarkets operate from the inside out, from underpaid workers and struggling customers to the corporate systems shaping how food is sold. Through vivid stories of employees and shoppers alike, she examines labor inequity, inequality, and community, ultimately challenging readers to rethink grocery stores not just as businesses, but as potential spaces for connection and equity beyond profit. Good read-alikes for this are going to be The Secret Life of Groceries by Madrid Lore, an investigative look at the hidden world of the grocery industry, revealing how food reaches supermarket shelves and the often difficult labor behind it. Through interviews and on-the-ground reporting, it explores truckers, warehouse workers, farmers, and entrepreneurs while exposing the human and ethical costs of America's demand for cheap, convenient food. And Selling Sexy, Victoria's Secret and the Unraveling of an American Icon, traces the rise and fall of Victoria's Secret from its early cult favorite catalogs in the late 70s to its transformation into a global retail giant under Les Wexner. The brand reshapes American beauty standards through its glamorous advertising and iconic angels, but later struggles as cultural attitudes towards body image and representation changed. The book also explores controversies surrounding Wexner's ties to Epstein and examines the company's attempts to reinvent itself in a shifting market. Checkmate by Ben Mesrick. In September of 2022, the unthinkable happened. 19-year-old American chess prodigy Hans Niemann defeated world champion Magnus Carlsen in a stunning face-to-face match. Within days, Carlsen accused Neiman of cheating, a bombshell allegation that rocked the chess world. As the scandal spiraled, Chess.com, the dominant force in online chess, launched a high-stakes investigation, igniting a global media firestorm. But this book is about more than a cheating scandal. It's the story of a teenager willing to risk everything to rise to the top, a reclusive genius suddenly fighting to protect his legacy, and a centuries-old game transforming into $1 billion industry fueled by streaming sponsorships and Silicon Valley-powered players. With exclusive access to the central figures, Ben Mezrich takes readers deep inside the weird, wild, and world of competitive chess where genius meets ambition and every move could be your last. The read-alikes are going to be Bruce Schoenfeld's Game of Edges, explores how data, technology, and analytics transform professional sports franchises from loosely run teams into highly optimized business empires. From players' performance metrics to fan engagement strategies, modern franchises use data to gain competitive and financial advantages both on and off the field. Drawing on interviews with owners, executives, and players, Bruce Schoenfeld examines how teams like Golden State Warriors, Liverpool FC, and Chicago Cubs are reshaping sports through technology, media, gambling, and branding, where keeping fans engaged can matter as much as winning championships. And in Red Card by Ken Bensinger, this tells the shocking true story of the massive FIFA corruption scandal, one of the largest international investigations in sports history. What began as a small IRS tax inquiry into an American soccer official uncovered widespread bribery and corruption tied to global soccer and the FIFA World Cup. The investigation led by U.S. authorities exposed corruption spanning dozens of countries and reaching the highest level of FIFA, the organization governing the world's most popular sport.
The Wilder Way is a deeply personal travel memoir by an internationally beloved YouTube adventurer and National Geographic TV host. Ava Zhu Beck was a well-paid corporate executive living in London when she decided to leave her job and picture-perfect marriage and go on what became a 7-year journey across Mongolia, Yemen, and the islands of the Arctic Circle. This extraordinary memoir chronicles one woman's transformation from someone living society's idea of a best life to a person discovering the truth of her own. Raw, disarmingly honest, and beautifully told, filled to the brim with adventure stories from faraway places to inspire any reader to take the Wilder Way. So, themes of adventure, purpose and meaning, stepping off the beaten path. For more like that, North of Ordinary by Sue Aikens, which I believe never mind. This one is about, this is by another National Geographic star of the show Life Below Zero. And in this one she writes about her journey of leaving it all behind to live in the untamed wilds of Alaska. And Free Ride, this was the one I think that got highlighted last month. This is another kind of inspiring story of self-discovery and global adventure about a woman who embarked on a 20,000-mile motorcycle journey after learning that her partner had been having an affair.
1873 is an enthralling history that tells the story of the financial crash of 1873, its impact around the world, and the banking family at the heart of it. Ironically, though the Rothschilds had been very careful to keep themselves out of public light and relatively low profile during this period when the bubble was growing, when it popped, they were viciously scapegoated as a wider part of an anti-Semitic movement that would come to full evil fruit in the 20th century. This is a meticulously researched and accessible history that provides a bird's eye view of the global narrative that played out from the latter 1800s